happy to do service. If it's a service that I can say something, and because Krishna has given me that service, I get to do something. So I'd like to offer my respects to my spiritual master, Jivananda Kasvanachari Maharaj, who's here, and all the assembled devotees. So tonight I wanted to speak about solving the world's problems. And if anybody's noticed, we're having some trouble in the world today. There are some serious issues happening. And my entire life, and probably your entire life also, has been a constant war. It's like constantly war. I remember being 4 years old and, 9/11 and, seeing on the screen and not really knowing what was going on. My parents were freaking out. My family was freaking out. My school was freaking out. And I was naturally freaking out. I didn't know why I was freaking out, but I was freaking out. There's so many disasters in this world. This world is just seemingly full of disasters. And the fact that we're here personally is a disaster. It's a disaster to be in the material world because we have to face these problems of life, birth, death, old age, and disease. We don't like death. We don't like birth. We don't like old age. We don't like disease. These are disastrous situations. So how do we solve this war, disease, violence, drugs, all of these problems we're seeing in the world today? These are creating an atmosphere where the human being just can't feel happy. I was reading a statistic, and who knows if it's true or not, but I was reading it, and it was expressing that the stress of an average teenager in America is higher than that of a psychiatric patient in the 50s. And I would believe it because I was a teenager. And I'm seeing teenagers now. My mom's been a teacher for 30 years. And she's expressed how, she's seen students shift over the course of 30 years of teaching. She's seen how the students nowadays are really unable to do what they were able to do, when she started teaching. And in fact, she sees that the psychological problems the students are having is so much increased. So why are people disturbed? And in short, you can understand that people are disturbed because people's minds are disturbed. A disturbed person equals a disturbed mind. And so our life is basically determined by the quality of our thoughts. We can say like that the quality of my thoughts is going to determine the quality of my life. A thought has a vibration. And even, different scientists have discovered, Dr. Miyamoto, he discovered that water is influenced by the power of thought and prayer. If you freeze a water, you write, "I hate you" on it, it'll freeze into some ugly, horrible looking crystal. And if you write, "I love you" on it, it'll freeze into beautiful snowflakes. So in this way, we know that thought influences the world. In fact, everything we're seeing around us in this room started off in someone's mind. The subtle form of this microphone was an idea. This microphone stand was an idea. This drum was an idea. All of these things, this temple was an idea that went from the subtle to the gross. And so the manifestation of the world we see today, the gross manifestation of the world, is a similar understanding that things are going from subtle to gross. So this is a reflection of the human consciousness, the mass human psyche, the mind of humanity is being reflected in the world today. So we're at war with ourselves. That's the big issue. We're at war with ourselves. We hate ourselves. We are insecure, angry, envious, full of lust, full of greed. As a society, maybe individually you may be doing better or you may be doing worse. But as a society, these things are going on. And we should ask ourselves, is there a solution to this problem? The big issue in society today, and these organizations such as the United Nations and all of these various peace organizations, Srila Prabhupada strongly criticized them, expressing that they will have no ability to create real peace in the world because they fundamentally misunderstand how this world works. They don't understand this concept of things coming from a subtle level to a gross level. They're thinking, let me solve these external things. Let me fix this war, put out this fire, put out this fire, put out this fire. But you're not actually solving the real problem. And the example is sometimes given. Once one of our gurus in our movement, His Holiness Radhanath Swami, he was traveling as he does, all over the world. And he was actually in an airport in India, and he was, feeling quite tired. And one person came up to him and said, Maharaj, the Indian Minister for Environmental Health would like to speak with you. And Maharaj was feeling, I don't want to speak, I want to just relax. It's been a long, trip. But being a humble servant of Krishna, he said, okay, and she came and she spoke and she chastised him. She said, what is your movement doing for the world? What are you doing for the hungry? What are you doing for the environment? You're not helping to solve the global warming or the environmental disasters or the climate change. And Maharaj humbly said, I deeply appreciate the services you're doing. But one should understand that if a body has boils or some type of skin issue, you have to treat the individual boil. You put, medicine on it, various salves, herbs. You may have to lance it. All of these things are taking place. But unless you solve the infection within the body, which is causing those boils, then they'll continue to come back. So in a similar way, the problems that are causing the war, the drugs, the violence, the challenges in our own lives are not some external factor. They're actually an internal factor. Human psyche, human consciousness has to shift to a higher state of being in order to solve these problems. We can stop this war, but another war starts, correct? This is the case. I remember when the Ukraine war started, and then, a few years went by, we're absorbed in that one. Now this Gaza and Israel war, and then now this Iran war. It's constant. And when I was a kid, it was the Iraq war, and so many things. And we're not actually solving the fundamental issue. This is the problem. And that's also in your life. You have your wars. You're warring with your husband or your wife or your children or this or that. And we can make peace. But if we're not actually cleansing our consciousness, then we're not actually really making peace. We're just forgetting about it, covering it over, and waiting for it to happen again. So Krishna consciousness is the solution. This is what we're presenting in this movement, is that Krishna consciousness is the solution to all of the world's problems. And we say that with full conviction. Without any doubt, we can understand scientifically that this process of spiritual life, which is enunciated by Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and delivered by His grace or His holiness, His divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, is the solution to all problems. I'm going to prove that to you. So, as a living entity develops in its consciousness at a certain point, we usually realize, most people in the world, at least it's going down now as intelligence is being lost, most people realize that God exists or a higher power exists. Some people don't even like the word God. Oh, they say a higher power, the universe, the source, all of these various things. But actually, you understand that there is a higher authority in the world. Things aren't just happening randomly. There's a higher authority. And if you just develop a little bit spiritually, you can see that in your own life. So many people say they believe in God, but they don't really believe in God. And that's a really kind of stinging type of statement. But if you actually believe in God, that will fundamentally shift the way you exist in this world. It has to. You can say intellectually, maybe I believe in God, or you might actually say there could be a God. You may not. You may say I believe, but do you actually believe? Because if you actually believe, it's going to fundamentally shift the way you live. Just like we believe there's a sun because we can see the sun. We have to believe it. So belief actually is an antithesis to this thing we call faith. Faith is the beginning stage in Krishna consciousness. It's understood that there are different stages of spiritual development. The first of which is called Shraddha, which means faith. That's the very beginning stage. How do you get faith? You meet a person of faith and they tell you, hey, God exists. Hare Krishna. Take a book, have some come to our temple and listen to a talk. Now I'm getting a little faith in this. That's a beginning stage, but that is not the end all by any means. Rather, there's 9 other steps. Faith leads to association with various sadhus so that I can develop taking a process very seriously, cleansing the heart of those things which are not allowing me to see the spiritual reality, becoming very steady in devotional service, developing a taste for interacting with God, developing attachment to God, developing love for God, and then developing prema, which is this absolute stage of loving God. So if you believe in God, then you have to be beyond this stage of faith, which means you have to take your spiritual life from the stage of just, I believe, to the stage of I experience. And that is different from I believe. I believe all these rituals work. I'm going to the rituals, I'm doing them. But unless your rituals are taking you from the stage of belief to the stage of experience, the great sage Sutta Goswami says that's considered shrama eva kevalam. It's useless in this life and the next. So we have to have faith, we have to have experience of God. And that's going to transform us. Having a God experience, a Krishna experience, will transform your heart. And you will see a shift in the way that person lives. So the Bhagavad Gita explains that the problem to these, the solution to these problems is yagya. We just had our friend Kirtan Yagya Das chant. That word is in his name. So yagya is translated roughly to the word sacrifice. And sacrifice gets a bad rap in the world because sacrifice means we're killing something, or, human sacrifice, these types of things. But actually sacrifice comes from this Latin, means to make sacred, to sanctify. So we have to sanctify our existence as a community, as a world community. We have to sanctify our existence by performing sacrifice. So when you come to the Hare Krishna temple, one of the things you learn about is karma. It's one of those things you've heard about maybe your whole life, but you may not have learned so much about it. But karma is basically the understanding that every action has an opposite or equal reaction. In fact, there's three kinds of karma. One is karma. Karma means actually good actions in the Vedic language, actions which are positive and which bring about a good result. Then there is vikarma, which are actions which bring about a bad result or an unfavorable circumstance. And then there is akarma, those actions which do not produce a reaction. And so a very intelligent, spiritually minded person, he is striving for those actions which don't produce a reaction. Unfortunately, the world today is tasting the results of vikarma, of actions that produce horrendous effects. And this is the cause of war. This is the cause of disease. This is the cause of drought, pestilence, bad weather, bad population, drugs. All of these things are a karmic result of activities which are against the laws of this material world, against the laws of the universe, against the laws of God, against the laws of Krishna. So with that understanding, it's described in the Bhagavad Gita. Yagyartart karmayon yatra, lokayam karma bandha, taratam karma kondaya, mukta sangha samacharaha. Krishna is describing to Arjuna that works have to be performed as a sacrifice for Vishnu, for Krishna, for God. Otherwise, works cause bondage in this material world. So there's a concept here being described that a work or an action, and actually the word karma really just means action. Anything you do has a reaction. Even Isaac Newton said this: for every action, there's an opposite or equal reaction. So what Krishna is explaining here, and as the solution to all problems, is work has to be done as a sacrifice for Vishnu. Otherwise, it causes bondage. When we can say, well, Kirtanesvara Das, what about good works? Do they cause bondage? The answer is yes. Good works also cause bondage, because you have to taste the result of that good work. You did an action, now you have to taste the result. So you can get actually entangled in the good things in life. And that means you forget your spiritual position. And when you forget your spiritual position, you end up doing the bad things in life. So even good works lead to bad actions, which doesn't make very much sense from our material mindset, but spiritually it's perfect. So actually we have to strive for works that don't produce any bondage. And those works are those works which are done as a sacrifice to Krishna. Done in such a way that Krishna is pleased, God is pleased, and bestows blessings. And it's further described in this 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita that when this process of sanctification is going on in human society, the higher beings, all of the elemental spirits, the demigods, they are arranging for the human society to have all abundance. There will not be famine, there will not be drought, there will not be any of these things which we see in the world today. But because human society is becoming godless, and because human society is not acting in accordance with these spiritual principles, we're tasting these horrendous results. For instance, common understanding amongst devotees is that war is a result of animal slaughter. War is a result of mass animal slaughter and abortion. This is mass murder. When you understand spirituality, you have to understand that every living entity has a soul. So killing a living entity unnecessarily is not good karma. It's bad karma. It creates bad reaction. I mean, if you've ever seen a slaughterhouse, it's really horrendous. It's a Holocaust. It's terrifying. Now, we could say, well, they're not as intelligent as human beings, but they're actually more intelligent than your children, your baby children. And we know that children can experience fear, all these emotions children are experiencing, fear, horror, terror. And so when you're putting living entities, living souls through this continuously, by the billions actually, you're going to get a certain reaction. On the subtle level, this is going to create human slaughter, which is what we're seeing in the world today. And of course, abortion, every living entity that comes into this world is grown by the soul. When the soul leaves the body, it's considered dead. So if there's growth, that's a symptom of a soul. And so therefore, children in the womb also are souls. And that murder is going to create a bad reaction. And therefore, human society has to suffer. So one can ask the question, intelligent question, that, well, so many things are dying. We're killing carrots when we pull up a carrot. We're killing so many trees to eat, killing all the grains, all the rice grains, we're killing them. Good question. Therefore, one has to perform all actions as a sacrifice. Yagyartart kamayon yatra lokiyam kamabandha. Those actions have to be done for Vishnu. And so you can't, unfortunately, well, I guess fortunately, but you can't offer your human slaughter in the millions and billions, or animal slaughter in the millions and billions to God. You can't say, God bless this murdered animal. It doesn't work that way. Krishna says, one can offer me with love and devotion a fruit, a flower, a leaf, water, and I will accept it. We understand that ultimately this is vegetarian foods in the mode of goodness. This is sattvic foods, grains, beans, vegetables, fruits, sugar, dairy products, ideally coming from good sources. Those things, when offered to Krishna, Krishna cleanses them of karma. And that is spiritual food stuff known as prasadam. And that prasadam doesn't only not give us any karma, good or bad, it also diminishes our present karma. So all in all, it's described in the Vedas that there are many types of sacrifices. In the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives so many types of sacrifices. How do we sanctify our lives? Some people fast, some people meditate, some people give away their possessions, some people give great charities. All these things are described. And then Krishna gives a conclusive statement that if you want to learn how to sanctify your life, he says you should approach a spiritual master. And in the age of Kali, all the spiritual masters agree that because they're coming from scriptures also, that the process by which we sanctify our lives in this age, in which everything is cleansed, is this process of chanting God's names. In fact, it's described, Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam, kalo nasteva, 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 gatir anyataha. It's described that in this age of Kali, which means the age of quarrel and hypocrisy, which we're seeing today, in this age of Kali, the only way by which one can free themselves from this material suffering is chanting the holy name, chanting the holy name, chanting the holy name. And then it says, Nasteva, Nasteva, Nasteva. There is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way. Because all the other forms of sanctification in this age are too complicated. We're so disturbed in mind. You say, oh, well, let me just meditate. You can't even meditate anywhere because there's Wi-Fi and 5G going through your brain. It affects us. It's not possible. You have to find a very secluded, quiet place. Can't get on Instagram. It doesn't work. So the recommendation is that we come together and we chant God's names, just like we were doing previously. And that if we do that, it will sanctify our hearts and our minds, and actually we'll begin to see these things all clearly. So this purification, which comes from sacrifice, brings about these results. One of them is knowledge. One of them is freedom from bondage. And what is this knowledge? Actually, when you perform this type of Sankirtan, this chanting of Hare Krishna, you start to realize that I'm not this body. It becomes very clear to you, I'm not this body. I'm the soul within the body. And the soul within the body has these amazing qualities of being eternal, full of knowledge, full of bliss. And not only do you realize you're not this body, you realize that other people aren't this body. And when you realize that, how can you hate any living being? It doesn't work. Because I'm seeing that actually you're a soul. Why would I hate you? I don't hate you for your religion because you're not your religion. I don't hate you for your skin color because you're not your skin color. I don't hate you for your political views because you're not your political views. I don't hate you because you're a different species than me. Rather, I see you as a part of God. And because I know that I'm part of God, and because I have developed love for that supreme personality of Godhead, Krishna, by chanting his holy names, now I can love you. And it's easy. And therefore we see that a person who chants Hare Krishna, they develop purity in their lives and they develop love for all living entities. So that is the result of this chanting Hare Krishna. Otherwise, if one does just karma, they just, we hear that a lot, and this is a common understanding, and I get it. It makes a lot of sense. Let me just be a good person. That's the ultimate thing. As long as we just become good people. Goodness means you're going to get good karma. Good karma means you're going to get a good result. But a good result means that you have to take birth again. You have to get old again. You have to get diseased again. And then ultimately you have to die again. Therefore Krishna says, Abrama bhuvana loka punaravatin Arjuna. He says that from the highest planet down to the lowest planet, all are places wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who comes to my abode, he doesn't take his birth again in this material world. So our whole movement is focused on acting in such a way that we become in harmony with the laws of nature. You can think, oh, this is all mystical and this is kind of some mystical process. But actually, all of these things are meant to develop a consciousness by which our thoughts, our words, and our actions are in harmony with the laws of nature and with the Supreme Godhead. And by acting in such a way, one will experience peace. So getting practical in your family, in your home, in your individual lives, if you practice this chanting Hare Krishna, you will see how the blessings flow upon you. Because chanting Hare Krishna is a prayer in which the meaning contained is, my dear Lord, do not engage me in the service of this elusive material energy. Rather, make me in harmony with you. I want to serve you. I want to be in harmony with you. So that prayer is powerful, and we see the effect. Actually, thousands and thousands of people come from so many backgrounds and become rapidly purified in their lives by this chanting Hare Krishna. So when you chant this mantra, you actually come into alignment with God's purpose for you. We have our free will because the whole universe is based on love, which is a good thing. The whole universe is based on love. More than it's based on justice, it's based on love. And because the ultimate source of love is Krishna, God, we have to have free will. We can either choose to love or choose not to love. That's what makes love real. And so when we actually come in harmony out of love with this personality, Krishna, everything becomes clear. Everything becomes easy. Blessings flow upon us. Even those troubles we may go through, we understand to be blessings in that state of being. So this Harinam and this service to Krishna, this is the actual solution for a happy life. Really it is. And anybody who does this, even devotees, they may, put on the garb and whatever, but if they don't actually engage in this process of chanting Hare Krishna nicely, then the effects don't manifest as strongly. So I'll end with this verse. Krishna's always wheeling and dealing in the Bhagavad Gita. He's given us these deals. And one of the things he says is, Vedeshu yageshu tapashu chaiva taneshu yat punya palam pratishtam adyaiti tat sarvam idam viditva yogi param stanam upaiti chadyam. Such a beautiful shloka, beautiful verse. He says that if you perform this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, this devotional service to me, if you do like this, Vedeshu, all of the study of the Vedas, that means all scriptures actually, you'll understand it by chanting and by doing service to Krishna. Yageshu, all of the sacrifices, all of the types of sanctification you can do, the meditations, the rituals, different churches, whatever, all of those things are done when one practices this Hare Krishna chanting, this service to Krishna. Vedeshu, Yageshu, Tapashu, all of the ascetic austerities, people in caves, people doing very hardcore austerity. You'll see different Christian people in caves eating only locusts for their whole lives, or whatever they're doing. All of that is performed when you do this devotional service. Punya palam, all of the good deeds. You're doing good deeds. We do good deeds, we get good results. That is achieved by this devotional service to Krishna. And Daneshu, all of the charities you can give. You're giving so much charity to get good reaction. That's performed. That's achieved by this devotional service. And lastly, Yogi Param Stanam Upaiti Chadyam, you go to the highest abode after this body is finished. Yogi Param Stanam. Param Stan means place, like Pakistan, Afghanistan, these mean places. And Param Stan means the supreme place. Yogi Paramstan means the supreme place of all spiritual persons. You go to that place by performing this devotional service. So this Hare Krishna Maha Mantra really is a solution because it changes, back to the beginning there, it changes the contents of the mind. And like we said, all of these things in this room, every single human invention in this room, this building, it started off in someone's mind, maybe went to a blueprint, then it went into the 3D. From the mind to the 2D to the 3D. And so when you change the mind, the reality changes. And the only way to change the mind and purify it, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, is this chanting of Hare Krishna, or another name of God, bona fide name of God. But it's recommended in this age that we chant Hare Krishna. And all of the great saints who've achieved the highest spiritual enlightenment do chant Hare Krishna. So we chant Hare Krishna. But it's described that all the names of God, he has infinite names. We chant them. Actually, the Bible also says one should chant the name of God in the last verse of Psalms from morning till evening with drums and cymbals. Quran says God has beautiful names, the most beautiful names, one should sing them. This is a fundamental spiritual principle. When we do like this, it will change the mind of the whole human race, starting with ourselves, and then the externals will naturally follow. So we'll stop here and we'll ask for any questions or comments. See that Nadia Bihari's hand is raised.
Thank you, Ruth. Beautiful, powerful, heavy. We see it by itself. I was just wondering, so even listening to this class's service, right?
Yeah.
So I was thinking something about that, about mercy and grace, how we're all struggling in different ways with something or other. And like what the mercy and grace is of Srila Prabhupada, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how it can seem like daunting of even starting, about thinking about this task, and also like how it seems like we just need to renounce and come live at the temple and be a monk if we're going to be successful. I don't know if you kind of get what I'm getting at.
It's a lot there, but I think I get the gist of it.
Yeah.
I said this universe is based on love, and God's love is greater than his justice, and Krishna's mercy is greater than his love, actually. So yeah, everything is based on this grace. And we can't even breathe without God's grace. We don't really understand how it is we're breathing, or how it, I'm moving my hands somehow, but how is it happening? Actually, this is all Krishna's mercy, Krishna's grace. The sun is rising, everything is happening, everything is arranged perfectly. We're 93 million miles away from the sun, perfectly in this zone. Everything is perfect for our existence. And this is God. It's all his grace. And when we're in harmony with that, it means we're getting that grace. And so that grace, when we actually look for it, it's so powerful. In fact, all the animals in the world, they're being fed, and we're worrying so much about food. So the animals are even getting grace. So what to speak of a person who, rather than the animals are in harmony with God, but when we are against harmony with God, we're getting very little of that grace. But what to speak of a person who just simply makes a little attempt to come closer to Krishna, then there's unlimited blessings upon them. And that doesn't mean necessarily that they have to be a card-carrying ISKCON Hare Krishna. A simple prayer to God, calling out to the Lord, that's a type of kirtan that will benefit us greatly. So in this age, anybody who does a little service to Krishna, especially by trying to help another person that's trying to serve Krishna, there's unlimited blessings there. And so there's so much we can do. In fact, Krishna gives, I'll give two last little shlokas here, Krishna's answers to your questions. Krishna says, just fix your mind upon me. Not so easy. If you can't do that, follow rules and regulations and try to attain me. That's kind of where a lot of the devotees are at. It's not so easy. If you can't do that, just try to work for me. Okay, let me give a little help to the temple once in a while, or to someone who's trying to serve Krishna. Just try to work for me. If you can't do that, ultimately it comes down to just try to be a good person. You're going to make some progress. Of course, it's not as fast, and it's not going to give us the same benefit as that spiritual intensity, but that's there. And in fact, no one has to change their position to become a devotee of Krishna. Krishna says, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmaram yudyacha maya pitamano budhir mam eva shashasham shayaha. That just perform your prescribed duty, whatever it is. If you're a father, a mother, working wherever you're at, perform your prescribed duty, while at the same time remembering me. Especially you can chant while you're doing whatever, or you can just think of Krishna, think of God, remember God. By doing so, you will come to me without fail. So, okay, I think that's it. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.